Are you nervous?
I'm fucking shitting myself.
How come?
This is very professional.
Just act like we're at the gym.
Yeah. Okay.
But not at the gym.
This is being filmed too.
Oh,
That's part of it. Are you nervous about doing this?
Nah, I'm not nervous, but more nervous about what you're going to talk about.
When was the last time you did any form of media?
Sure. After probably 2 years, 3 years.
Really?
Yeah.
How long?
Yeah. Well, I've been a long time retired.
We'll get into that in a minute, Shawnee. Hello, Sauce.
Hello, mate.
It was your Murph 8 2 years ago that started this whole idea that I put in Paul's head about let's recap your challenge from 2 years ago. It's evolved a little bit since then.
Slightly, yes. Bit bigger now.
Growing legs.
It has.
Can you believe where we're at 2 years on from that podcast?
Nah.
Because you didn't embrace it early on, did you?
Hated it. Hated it.
What held you back from doing it? Was it the unknown
Oh, it's
about what to expect?
judgment, fear, social media.
Yeah, you hate social media.
Fucking hate it. I'm going to stop swearing too.
You can swear.
Yeah,
It's,
swear,
it's,
swear.
it's your
It's your
podcast.
Yeah.
You are.
It's not my podcast.
We were told.
Podcast.
This is MA 15 plus for
Yeah.
those listening.
Yeah.
Kids in the car, please turn it down.
Block your ears.
So
Language
the
warning.
purpose of us doing this podcast, Sean, and Sauce and Paulie, is that we did 2 years ago start to create discussions around men's mental health, and it was a focus around Movember, which of course you work for, Sauce, and do such a great job with. And from there, it stemmed into Drewy wanting to run around the river for 24 hours. And then we've just created, I guess, a safe space, Paulie, or the opportunity to have a safe space at the gym while also having the fun-loving banter that you experienced, that you've
Daily.
experienced, that you still experience at Maribyrnong Footy Club.
2 years on end.
And that's what we want to
It doesn't stop.
get our head around over the next little while. So I'm Joey Pignataro, for those who may not know, for some strange reason. How you don't know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
voice.
The voice.
Shawnee, I actually met you when we were
did.
15 years old
I know, believe it or not.
at Doona Stars Football
I know.
Club.
We played a couple of games of footy together.
I think you and I were the same height
I reckon
back then.
at one point, I think at one point we were, and you
Hey.
stopped growing and I continued.
Yes. Yeah. We were both on, well, I was on the halfback flank at the time. Michael Fisher was our captain.
No way.
Leachy.
Far
was there.
out.
Jeez.
We had a
Really?
few, yeah.
A team that had Jeremy Laidler was in the team. Jared
yeah.
Keisha was in the team.
Dylan Joyce.
Holy shit.
Yeah, we had a few.
It's a good football team.
Yep.
And Fish was the captain of it.
Fish
Yeah,
was the
I reckon
captain.
He was, yeah.
Why how the fuck does that happen?
Fish was a good footy player back in the
He
day.
was. He was
Yeah.
a good leader. He was a good leader. But that was the first time I got to know Shawnee.
Yep.
And the first time I got to know you, Sauce, was at another gym, Ascot Fitness, in the Ascot Vale Leisure Centre. He used to do some of his best work with the deadlifts, and you're still doing all of that.
Trying to, yeah.
And then we met you, Paul, at Empower Gym. And it's been an absolute whirlwind the last 2 and a bit years hanging out with you. But it's been nothing short of exceptional.
Oh,
Let me
thanks,
say that
Joey.
off the bat.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks, mate.
Because the place that you've created for a lot of us is all the dedication that you and Jacko did put in the early years of the place to see to where it's got to now. So what we're going to do over the next little while is get to know you a little bit more, Sean, and talk about what you're coming up with in a few weeks' time, Sauce, and just you as the connector, Paul.
Beautiful.
You're here to help me out as sort of a
The glue.
co-host.
Yeah, perfect. I'll just sit here
glue.
in the shadows.
So I want to ask you a deep question off the top,
Go ahead.
and then we can sort of unpack it.
I'm really excited for this.
Because Movember, all around men's mental health, and both you and Sauce are already sporting the Mo. You've started early.
Early head start on it.
But people ask all the time, what does it mean to be a man? And it's a pretty depth philosophical type question, but I just want to get your initial thoughts, and we can go from there on what you think it is to be a man. How do you define what a man is, Sean?
I think it's a pretty good question because I think it's continually evolving and changing now in the world we live in. But I think for me, as I've gotten older over the last couple of years, and particularly since finishing footy, it's probably about having a clear idea and identity of what you stand for and who you are and the way you carry yourself day to day. And I think for me particularly, like that's probably evolved a fair bit over the last few years in terms of transitioning out of footy and trying to find your identity again and along those lines. But I think for me, yeah, when you ask that question, it's probably about having a clear purpose of what you want to do and the way you carry yourself.
What about for you, Sauce? You've had a journey like this for a couple of years. How does it sit with you, that question, and what is the first place your mind goes to?
Yeah, similar to Shawnee. This day and age, it is very, very hard to narrow down a definition of what it is to be a man. And having purpose and living by a set of values is something that obviously drives, I think, that definition a little bit harder. But being supportive around the people that are in your life is, I think, a really critical piece. It's still a very traditional view of being that support, but I think it's now evolving into being able to be open and honest with that supportive network as well, which is creating a bit more of a wider definition, which is nice.
Your identity as a man, I guess, has changed a little bit this year, Paul. You've gone from being not only someone that is the connector of Empower, he doesn't like the term owner, so we're going to call you the connector of Empower. But since, what was it, early July, you became a father.
Did.
So does your definition of being a man change, given you have to now provide for a young little Koa who's navigating his way through the early phases of life?
Jeez, it's a full-on question off the rip.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll balance it with a bit of light shade, but I just thought
Yeah,
we'd
no,
get this
I
one
like
out of the table early.
Yeah. Definition of being a man.
I mean, if it hasn't changed for you, that's totally fine. It doesn't necessarily have to.
No, I just think, like Shawnee said and Sauce, you just evolve, you learn, you get better, you make mistakes, you show up for yourself, you don't feel sorry for yourself too much, and you just try and be the best that you can. I really find that my purpose for myself is I get a lot of joy out of helping others. So that's a big driving force to that. And the more I can be a man by being myself and having people resonate with what I stand for, makes me feel a little bit walking a bit taller by just being myself authentically. And people see that. And if they choose that that's a path that they resonate with, then great. And I'm happy with that too.
Have you found you've had different conversations with people in the last 12, 14, 16 weeks, even with like becoming a father?
Yeah.
You're
For sure.
eyes
Yeah.
wide open with so many different
Learned
things you
so
probably
much.
didn't think about.
Yeah, nuts. Absolutely wild. It's wild. So I always used to, honestly, used to laugh and say, oh, shut up. If you had a kid, who cares? What makes you different to anyone else?
All right, who would have thought that?
I'm going to be honest. But, man, I've got such a appreciation for people that have gone through that. And I was even saying to you in the car, on the way over here, I'm now really starting to see things in it's all positive, a real different positive light. Luckily, there's a lot of good men that I've seen before me that have been fathers that I can lean on and look to, because that's what it's all about, really. Just kind of leaning on other people that have done it before you or have more experience than you or have lived that path before, and then you can bounce off them and talk to them and be vulnerable with them about the parenthood journey, which a lot of them are at the gym. So shout out to those boys. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
I imagine it would
I think
be.
it's pretty good. Shows everyone's perception of what it is different, and I think it obviously comes back to what you've got going on in your life at the time and circumstances around what's going on. Everyone's perception of what it is could be completely different, but it doesn't matter what's going on. They're all acceptable points, and what you view it as, that's fine.
Good point.
Yeah.
So has your definition changed over your time? So I was talking to someone earlier this morning just about the fact that we were going to do this. And they said, what are you going to ask Shawnee about? And I said, well, I actually met Shawnee when in under 16s, and I'm fascinated to know the way you entered the football world. Of course, your older brother is a premiership player with North Melbourne, so there's maybe some expectation externally on how you perform. You're obviously playing in the AFL, which is something I guess all three of us, the other three in the room, probably dreamed about at one point or another in our teenage years. Sauce probably still holds out hope because he's still playing compared to the rest of us. But, did you walk in there with your eyes wide open knowing what to expect, or did the football world just completely take you by storm?
I think maybe a little bit, going back to obviously my brother playing, I probably went into the AFL world with probably a bit more of a detailed lens than most, but I'd probably say at the same time that might have been a bad thing as well, because I think early days I went in there thinking, obviously, grew up in Melbourne, got drafted to Adelaide, moved over there, and probably just expected things to happen, because I'd obviously seen, my brother did it. Well,
Yeah.
this is how it's going to pan out. And then you get there and you walk in, you're like, oh, wow, this is a pretty big change and pretty confronting walking in as an 18-year-old walking into what's a man's environment, and having to learn pretty quickly about, I suppose, where your place is and trying to establish yourself as not only as a footballer, but now you're going from, you literally 2 months before that, I was in school at Essendon and St Kilda, and now I'm sitting next to me was Simon Goodwin, and opposite was Andrew McLeod. And I'm thinking, geez, like, how do I get
Handy
out?
couple of names.
Yeah, well, exactly. I remember watching both of them play against my brother in the grand final in 1998, and I'm sitting here and I'm like now I'm sitting next to these guys. Like it was pretty confronting in reflection. But yeah, like I suppose, walking in there, I probably had a different idea of what it was and how it would pan out, and then when you get there, you learn pretty quickly about what it actually is and how you've got to establish yourself.
So I was reading a little bit about your story outside of obviously knowing you, Shaun. You came from Adelaide to the Bombers, which meant that on Anzac Day, Paul, we got to yell over the fence at this bloke a few times.
Yeah.
We won't talk about it, Joey.
And then the one year...
surrounded by 3 Collingwood supporters.
It was 1 year at St Kilda.
1 year at the end, yeah.
After the Essendon, what was it, 2021, during the
2020
COVID years.
This is the COVID year.
So I was reading about that year, and you played, I think, 9 or 10 games out of the 17 or 18, and you fell out of love with footy, which understandably, I think most people fell out of love with the world in 2020 because we were all just locked up and boarded in our house. But what was that experience like for someone who lived a public life throughout that year when footy was, I guess, for us, sort of our sort of saving grace because there was nothing else to do?
Yeah, it was interesting because obviously you speak to different people about it, that everyone had different experiences, like not just in normal life, but in AFL world. But yeah, I don't know. For me, like, I don't know, at first going up to the hub, don't get me wrong, it was grouse. Like, obviously everyone was stuck down in Melbourne and held up inside and couldn't do anything. We obviously got to go up to Queensland. And it was great at first. We're living out of hotels. I know it sounds terrible.
Really painting a tough picture for us.
Yeah. But like in all seriousness, I think I don't know. I think it just for a lot of the older guys and ones with families, I think we probably more so struggled because we were used to having that routine every day of how we liked things done. Not like things done, but we had certain ways that we prepared for games that we like to do things in certain ways. Whereas I think the younger guys probably just embrace it as a holiday type thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think probably just my perspective on life and not just footy that year probably changed. Probably knowing that I was at that time, I think I turned 30 at the end of that year. So I knew I was getting towards the end of my career. So my focus was probably already naturally starting to shift away to what I thought might have been coming next. So I think that year probably just fast tracked how I felt about transitioning away from the game. But at the same time, it was still pretty tough. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think towards the end of that year, I was really starting to struggle mentally and emotionally because I knew that I really loved being at Essendon. That was probably my favourite part of my time, my career. Had some really great connections and memories and stuff like that. So I knew, like, walking away from that, like, that was something that I knew I was always going to struggle with. And I reckon even when I moved on to St Kilda that next year, like, I really did struggle, like, coming to terms that now I was at a new club. Just with the connections and the memories and the friendships that I had at Essendon. But yeah, I suppose, that year, it probably just sort of fast-tracked, I suppose that, getting towards the end of my career and starting to think about what was coming next in terms of life, I suppose,
What would you say, hearing that source around, it doesn't necessarily have to be football that you've fallen out of love with, say your day-to-day job is becoming more of a chore than it is a passion project, like I know Empower is for you, Paul, and I'm sure like everyone, there's tough times that you've got to navigate your way through, but falling back in love with something or transitioning to a different space to get your mental head right, your emotional body right, your physical health back to where it should be. I mean, have you experienced this in your couple of years working in Movember with people and with men in particular?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was it is definitely something big in life to have passion in what you do day to day. That just fills your cup no matter what. Helps you overcome challenges when they pop up. For me, starting as a counsellor in a lot of school systems, was very much involved in seeing, I suppose, that crisis end of the spectrum. which was difficult to deal with. You take on a fair bit of burden in that area. So respect to everyone out there that's working in that space, that's for sure. But it was similar. I'd kind of figured that I was potentially going to find myself in a moment where I needed to shift my focus. And Movember's always been an organisation that I've kind of dreamt of working at, a global organisation that do some amazing work, raising shit ton of money every year to go into men's health. So it was always a bit of a dream state to get into an organisation like Movember. So when a role popped up, it was kind of one of those things of take a jump and see where I land. And luckily, was able to roll into what is now my place in the world is at Movember. We are very much aligned in terms of our values. We are very much aligned in terms of how we want to go about making a difference. And so it's been an amazing journey to get to an organisation like Movember. But shifting that focus absolutely has helped. Now I'm in prevention rather than crisis. So it's a big shift, but that's kind of where the change needs to happen to help with people's mental health.
And the one thing, I don't know if you do this consciously or subconsciously, Paul, but in part of the dark or the intenseness of not loving playing footy, not loving where you're working, you've got an uncanny knack, whether you choose to believe it or not, or accept it, that you can come into Empower in your sphere and you can somehow find an opportunity to laugh and balance all the darkness with the fun side of things. And you and I have talked about this leading up to us recording this, and we didn't want to make this such an intense, heavy podcast. We want to balance it with a bit of entertainment and light. And you go into Empower, it doesn't matter if it's 4 a.m. in the morning or you're somehow still that you're not personally there at 4:30 in the afternoon. But right throughout the day, people are having fun and enjoying themselves, as well as dealing with, whether it be Shaun in the public sphere of not loving playing footy, whether it's Source not enjoying the work that he's doing day to day. But can you just talk to that for a moment around how you want to bring people on the journey and you want them to enjoy the journey and the energy that they feel when they interact with you personally?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that you see is that because I genuinely do love being there. And a lot of the times it's not to be misconstrued with the fact that I don't have a lot of struggles. So I don't know what I'm doing.
Cheeky little flex there.
Was it a little he's ripping them out.
I'm pretty fit.
Just
Pretty
like
fit at the minute. Pretty fit.
Exhibit A right here.
Is there a bit on that? Is it not? Nah, look, I think it's probably been more documented with the past couple of years. I've definitely had my struggles, So a big movement into the next phase of all of this stuff is like how to identify how to help get through that. And that is just bloody, don't feel too sorry for yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously. Just carry on and just keep knuckling down, Luckily for me, Empower's my happy place. Like Source is within Movember. Now Shawnee capturing his stuff within the Fireys, a bit of a spoiler alert there, getting into the Fireys. But it's so important to have purpose, to stay at home. Beck can say, when the days I'm at home, I hate it. I hate it. I do my own head in. But a real big value set of Empower is, a lot of people give me shit for not being there. I'd love to be there every fucking day, but I want to give other people opportunities to grow in the industry that I've been fortunate enough to do so too. So by having like Callie, Connor, other people in there to take classes, be involved, is a catalyst to help them raise, because I've been lucky enough to have that opportunity myself. But when I'm in there, I love it. I'm humming. I'm humming.
Always percolating. Always. I think
plenty happening.
Going back just on the back of talking about being a man a little bit earlier on, that's another form of, I guess, leadership that men show, is the ability to delegate and trust other people. In your case, it's for your company, Empower, that they can represent your brand in the same manner if you're not there. Which I think is very important. And just the fun side of things, I think, is important. I get a lot of takeaway because you've given me the opportunity to run at 5 a.m., run the class, and Source loves running more than just about anyone I've ever met. Source loves running. But the joy seeing in other people achieving
Yeah.
the things they're putting in place for
Awesome.
themselves this year. And it's been a massive takeaway when I'm in a bit of a slump, Sean, to just look at what other people are achieving and almost feed off that energy. Adds a little bit of a spark to my own.
Absolutely. It's sort of like an early little reminder. It's like you can keep pushing yourself through even when you are struggling or going through stuff, that using that, I don't know, for inspiration, I suppose. Yeah.
That's that role modeling for people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not only in physical you know, challenges, but also in life. You know, being that role model for someone else and just to keep going helps others connect to that, which is amazing. And that's, you know, an environment like Empower has created that for a lot of people.
That's what I was thinking in my head. I'm lucky that Empower is that way because I can tap into that for myself. You know, whatever that energy is when you're down or your momentum's waned or whatever it might be. Fortunately to me, I have to be there. So, well, I don't really have to be there technically, but I want to be there.
Yeah.
And it helps me stay on path, you know? So, and that's a real big part of my own journey. And then seeing, oh man, me keep continually forcefully showing up actually does a lot for me.
Stacking days.
Stacking days.
Building habits.
Yeah.
Bricks on a wall.
Then you look back.
How
and
many
you're like,
sayings can we
holy
get out
crap.
in one year?
Keep going. How many puns you
keep
got?
rolling.
Yeah.
I'll come back to it in a minute.
Yeah, cool.
I just, off the back of that, you've done this twice now, and we're going to talk about what we're doing, Road to 24 shortly. In 2022, you did the Murph 8 challenge.
Yes.
How many Murphs? 8 in
8 in
24
24
hours.
hours.
Last year, you did a Murph a day for 30 days.
Yeah, weighted
It's a
Murph a
sicko.
day, 30 days.
Weighted.
Yes.
And then obviously we're doing this 24-hour challenge, which we'll unpack in the next little while. But
Yeah.
how many times in the 24 hours 2 years ago and in the 30 days last year did you look at other people in the gym to draw upon for inspiration to get you through?
The 8 in 24 was definitely lots. I needed the community and the vibe around me for those ones. That was a tough challenge. You know, no sleep across 24 hours and ends up being probably 36 hours by the time you've been up and challenging yourself. So that I definitely needed the people around me. Last year, I think that's why I, you know, had thrown the idea of this one to Paul. Was last year it was hard to connect to outside because I was very much just doing it
Individual.
one a day, individual. I couldn't ask. I probably could have asked someone to do one with me, but it was difficult because a lot of time I was doing them at home. And so that one was a lot harder mentally because I'd had to keep showing up for myself 30 days on end. And that's why, you know, the idea for this one had come up because I was like, right, need to get back to something where everyone's around, everyone's connected, opening those conversations in the moment, and really challenging ourselves across the 24 hours. So that's where this kind of idea has stemmed from.
So what have you put forward, Source? What have you put forward for the Empower community this year?
Well, it was a nice little, I think it was a trundle around
Yeah,
Armstrong Creek.
it was.
Around the mini Marby down there.
Yep.
That Paul was talking about a role in a men's day and somehow attaching a few things to it. And I threw an idea out at him that I'd been thinking about for a while that why don't we do a relay for life type scenario where we get in the gym, get in some teams and keep the, all of the equipment moving for 24 hours. And off the back of that, roll a men's day at some stage. So that was the idea and it's grown from there.
Yeah.
So teams of 4?
4, 6 or 8, I think we've decided on. You can challenge yourself to a 6-hour, a 12-hour, or the big boy 24-hour, which I will be pushing lots of people to do.
Absolutely.
Because that is the challenge.
Yep.
All in the gym. I think we're changing,
Pieces, yep.
rotating every 15 minutes, and then we just get it done.
And the machines are?
The ski erg. I'll be sitting on that for a while because that one's my favourite. The roller, a treadmill, which Paulie's kind enough to get in.
Oh, you found some, did you?
Got him finally.
Oh.
Scoured Australia
The
for some
whole country.
I've been flown in specially for it. So
Any sponsors that want to chop us out some coin for it, just let us know.
And the bike, not the assault bike. If you're a
The
sicko,
concept bike.
if you're a sicko, you can go on the
Yeah.
assault bike for 24 hours.
I'm
but I
sure it'll be a
recommend
few people who jump on the assault with it.
I'll do the assault.
Yeah.
potentially the
Yeah.
sickos. Yeah.
You'd do the assault, would you?
That's my first.
For 24
That or the
hours.
rower.
Bull on it.
That or the rower.
Jeez.
Gee whiz,
I've
Sean.
got long levers for the rower. It's
I don't have either.
Yeah.
Long or levers. No running, just the treadmill.
Treadmill.
We're not
We
running
wanna-
outside for safety reasons,
No,
and we want
safety.
people to.
We want people in the gym. We want the
Together.
vibes up. And that's where we're going to be stuck for 24 hours.
Are you setting a financial target
We
with
actually,
Movember?
we actually haven't talked about this.
No.
No.
Here
Oh,
we go. This is a real.
There is
this
an opportunity
a
to-
segue.
This
This
is
good
good.
question. My personal fundraising target's 3K for this year.
For yourself?
For myself. I'm doing a few challenges across the
Oh,
month.
yes, you are.
I am. The first one is this weekend.
It is.
Running with Joseph here in the Melbourne Marathon.
You
So,
are.
Oh.
So you at the finish line, Sauce?
Nice.
So that's my personal target.
Yep.
As a collective though, across the gym, I don't know. It's a great question.
Sky's
I'll
the
throw
limit.
to the connector, the glue.
Yeah.
on
The
power
connector.
to
I
see
don't
what he
know.
reckons.
I don't delve into people's pockets.
No.
Whatever they want to put forward. Having listened to this podcast too, and I think me speaking and being involved in this podcast, it's really bringing everything together. Really,
Well, you have to speak on it. I know you. I know you don't like it, but you have to
Yeah.
speak on it. Like it can't just be me, and it can't
Yes,
just be
yes,
Sauce.
yeah.
You
Okay.
have to speak on it.
Yes,
So when he did put the idea in your head,
right.
and I know you love when members come forward with
It's
ideas.
the best.
Because Drew Vincent keeps putting ideas forward, but we're going to stop Drew from doing so because
Yes.
just wants to keep running loops of the river.
Yes, yeah.
Like, that's all Drew wants to do.
Yeah.
But you do love it, don't you? You love when an idea of
Everything.
some form comes forward
Yeah.
because it does engage a whole community to
Yeah.
come together, and they've embraced every single one of them since 2
Yeah.
years ago, haven't they?
No, it's awesome. It's and me trying to think of what this all means and how to essentially communicate that to everybody coming in. This is a really great platform, so thank you, Joey, for this.
Oh,
For
this
people
fun.
to be able to listen and actually understand what this psychopath's trying to get out of his brain. I can't speak on it.
He's
but
pointing
I
at
know-
himself, by the way.
I know what I'm
Not at anyone else
thinking
in
and
the
what we feel like it's going to be. But as Source mentioned then, like the best part of Empower, sitting in the shadows and observing, is just seeing the friendships, the community that's involved, my mates that come, the ability to be able to help others in that space. So this isn't necessarily a huge, incredible physical feat. Yes, I'm sure it's going to be challenging. Will be. It does sound like a bit of a cop-out by me saying it's not going to be physically challenging, but it is. But the main point of it is to bring everybody together, support each other, have good conversations, have a laugh, enjoy it, and let's have a crack at doing something we've never essentially done before and see where we end at the end of it all, like where we land at the end, you know? So I think it's going to be really cool.
I love that there is no expectations
Zero.
on what to expect because, Shawnee, you and I at 2 a.m. could be having a deep and meaningful, and
Yeah, they could
the next
be-
bike over at 2 a.m. they could be having the giggles
Yeah,
for 45
We all
minutes.
could be crying.
Or we all, well, there'll be definitely some
Some
tears of
tears,
some
yeah.
form.
Yeah.
Some
And
form.
that's okay.
That's all right.
That's
It's
all right.
more than
Exactly.
okay.
I think
Acceptable.
the stretch of time will be the challenge for everybody.
Definitely right.
Myself, I enjoy my sleep. It's been hit in the head
Oh,
with
yeah,
a little
hasn't it
fella
ever?
lately, but I'm prepped for this event now, you know,
Ready.
because of that. But just to bring everybody together under the roof in that space is essentially what it's all about. So, yeah, I'm excited for it.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you, and take this question however you want to take it.
Me again?
Yep.
Okay.
And then we can go around the room with this. You again, yes.
You have to say something.
Yes.
Okay.
And maybe, I don't know if I asked you this earlier on this morning. Are you fearful? Do you have any fears about, or reservations about how this is going to go? Did you have it before Sources Murph 8 2 years ago? Did you have it before
event?
Drew's run? Yeah. From the sense of, like you said before, judgments,
Yeah.
external people's opinions,
Yeah.
which essentially, as we've talked about before, doesn't really matter. It only matters what you think about yourself
Yeah.
and all that. But do you hold any reservations? And I guess I'm getting more to the point of, and you can talk to this because you did what all of us want to do and play in the AFL, is stepping into the arena. Like,
Yeah.
rather than just sit on the outside, talk about it and throw judgments into the people who are out there, you actually went out and, in your case, did it. You've done yours. Do you, because you stick your toe in and then you throw your whole body in to everything that you do.
Yeah. Well, it's polarizing because I'm so passionate about something, but then I know there's different tools and avenues to be able to share it with others, but I'm so scared to do that out of judgment, but I'm getting better at not giving a fuck, really. And this is all a part of this. Like, this is like, I've got to, like, I'm getting beamed to a mothership up here, you know? Like,
Well, it's all part of it.
This light.
This is my arena. You're in my arena here.
Right. We get about everything today. He's been mostly captivated.
Wow.
You can't believe it.
cool.
Can
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
It's not the cafe at Empower.
No.
And I think behind the scenes of like running the gym, I get to speak to everybody behind the scenes, not just on the floor and everything. And it's really cool to hear and see so many different individuals that offer such great different attributes. And I'm like, man, it's a disservice for them. Like I remember Drew saying it'd be a disservice if he didn't step up. It's a disservice for me if I don't push stuff like this to bring more people together, to connect, to form friendships, to form whatever, business opportunity, whatever it might be for one general purpose. Like, in community is such a strong word, and I really believe it. It's like it's everything. It really is. It's everything. So that's why we're doing it.
How did you go, Shawnee, stepping into the arena? Well, physical arena of like the MCG and the Adelaide Oval and all of those places.
I guess, like honestly, I reckon early days, and for most of my career, I really struggled. Like, we go back to just saying about not caring about what other people think. I reckon for large parts of my career, I really struggled and worried too much about what other people thought, and probably to the point that it really derailed my performance for a long time. Particularly early days at Adelaide, I just couldn't seem to get things right. And I think it was a combination of things of probably being away from home, trying to, like I said earlier, trying to find yourself as an athlete, and then trying to grow into a man. Probably wasn't aware of the stress that I was under, and and probably, like, honestly, that was probably my first encounter. Like, we talk about mental health, like I'd say at probably around 21, that was probably the first time I really started to really struggle from that point of view. Like, and like to go into it, like I remember being 21, I just had like probably the best preseason I'd ever had. I was in line to play round one. I was like, everything was ticking along. And I remember waking up one night in bed next to my girlfriend at the time, and I was just crying. And I just couldn't even, at that time, I just remember waking up and I was petrified of like, A, why am I crying? I'm laying next to my girlfriend. I don't want to wake her up because I'm scared of what she's going to think. And then I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, why am I like, what's going on? Like, why am I crying? Like, I shouldn't be, everything right now should be cherry ripe. But probably back then at the times, like we probably weren't as accepting and opening of talking about how you felt, like, and particularly in the footy world back then. Like, I think AFL's come a long way now in terms of being a lot more, and you see it in the news every day, people come out, take time away from the game. That's great night. So back then it was in that old model of mental health where it was just like, hush, hush,
Suck it up.
yeah,
Let's get on with it.
yeah, just get on with it. You don't say anything. So, and don't get me wrong, I think as time shifted, like even in my experience at AFL, that definitely shifted massively, and I'm like very grateful because I reckon, going through that experience and leaving Adelaide and coming back to Melbourne, it was probably one of the first things that I dealt with in terms of the Essendon club psych. I went and got on top of things, and I think it helped my performance massively. Like I said earlier, like Essendon was my favourite time of footy, and I think it correlated with the fact that I was playing good footy, and you make good relationships, good friendships through that, and good memories. But yeah, I suppose in terms of that question, in terms of or going back to what Paul said, not worrying about what people think. I know for me personally, it was something that I really did struggle with early days of footy, and then I reckon even post footy for the last, so I wouldn't say the last 18 months, but probably finishing up at St Kilda, and 2 years after that, I probably lost my identity a bit. I was really worried about what people thought of me, because now I was like, well, footy's finished. Like, who am I? And it was something that I really struggled with. Like, I remember, like, probably haven't told Paul this before, but I remember days walking into the gym and like I used to get anxiety about what people were thinking of me because now I wasn't Shaun the footballer. It's like, well, who am I, sort of thing. Which was really like confronting. It took me a long time to like do work on that and start to view myself as not just Shaun the footballer, as like it's okay to be Shaun the person.
Absolutely.
And not have it attached. I don't have to have football attached to have value in my life.
Absolutely.
But I think because at a young age, like football was all I knew. Like I said, going back to when my brother played, I just viewed football as that was my validation in life, sort of thing. So then to step away and not knowing who you are, like I had to do a lot of work in terms of be accepting of myself, I suppose.
It's an interesting thing, the whole identity piece. We've talked about this from an imposter syndrome point of view of not feeling like the owner of Empower. I certainly don't feel like I'm a good commentator by any stretch of the imagination, even though you will regularly tell me that I am, Paul, which is very kind of you to say. But it takes a lot to accept that that's where I'm at. And I remember having my own identity crisis. I would have been 4 years into my media career, which is now 16 years old. Ooh. And around the time one of our mates from St Bernard's was killed over in America, thinking at the time SEN at that point was everything. And that's what I identified with. I was the little bloke who went to St Bernard's and worked at SEN. That's all people sort of knew me as. And as soon as his life ended, I remember obviously being naturally shattered and not knowing what the fuck to do, and then understanding that this is just a job, and if it happens to me that I'm not on the planet, well, they're going to replace me on the very next day. So I've taken that with me for it's now been 12 years since then, and I don't identify with the job that I have. I'm very grateful for the position I'm in and the opportunities that I've been afforded, and I don't certainly take them for granted at all. But if it all ends tomorrow, I'm still
so good, Joey.
The little loud bloke who will turn up and run too many Ks.
And run.
Just
keep running.
Just stop running, mate.
There'll be no stopping now that I've started, Sauce.
True. Well, I think to jump in on that, sorry, and again with Beck, my partner's listening, I always say to her, Empower will not be around one day, and I'm happy. That's why I sit back. Like it may be.
What do you mean?
Don't say that. But like,
not the short term anyway.
It's a time in my life I've enjoyed, and it's great. But I don't identify in with it as much because I've had my own self-love that I've worked on for 6 years, and now like kind of like Shawnee coming into the end of his career, hearing him say that now live, which. I look at Shaun only as Shaun. I couldn't give a fuck if he played AFL or cared. I value Shaun for him as a person. And that is what we all are, is people at the end of the day. So discovering what to do from that is where I said before, putting joy into others. That's a piece that I enjoy. So that you can't take that away from me. Like Empower can be gone and I can still try be the best person I can to others and be a best person outside of that, and it's a path and journey that we all go on. Hence why having Albert come and speak at the Men's Day is a long-term old client of mine. Gee whiz. If, in the words of Ben Toman, who's going to be on after you here, if you got socks on, be careful because they're about to get blown off. It's going to knock your socks off.
He is a fascinating individual.
Unbelievable.
Which we're going to outline in a moment before we finish up. Have you got a shared experience of your own in that case? Have you found yourself identifying with something outside of you that you've either had to pull yourself back on or even acknowledging that at any given point in time?
A little bit, yeah, definitely. I think we all go through, I think, especially in that growth stage, your early 20s, when you are trying to find who you are as a person, you are thinking about external pressures and external people and where do you fit into the world. And I think that's, that kind of shows why mental health is so rife within, your age groups, kind of 15 to 44. Because people finding themselves in that challenge and finding or not finding the spot that they fit. And then, the old school stoic nature of what it is to be a man is still prevalent. And so people close up, shut up shop. And then, unfortunately, instances happen where people take their own lives because of that exact fact that they haven't been able to find their place in the world. Sorry to go down that path, but that is the extent of what people can end up doing. So, yeah, look, it is definitely a challenge, but having the people around you, as we've spoken so much about connection and community today, like that is the critical piece in life. If you've got people around you that back you to the hills, you can do whatever you want in life, and that is your place.
Yeah.
If you want to go fast,
Go together.
no, go alone.
Oh, okay.
If you want to go far,
Go together.
go together.
It's very funny that
I
you bring
like
that
that.
up. So, as Paul just touched on, I've recently gone to the fire.
Yeah, breaking news.
Yes.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. So halfway
When's the calendar coming out?
staying away from that.
Real Kane Corns area is this.
But it's for our recruit course, we've got a like a logo and values that we live,
Mm-hmm.
and at the bottom of the logo, go far, go together.
Yeah.
That's it. If you want to go far, you go together.
Very
So
funny,
true.
very ironic that you bring that
Yeah.
up.
Maybe I was in your office, Shorty, just checking out the fiery slogan.
Well, regardless, and everyone's like, I'm a 360-degree thinker.
That you are.
Like, no matter what it is, no matter what industry, field, person, whatever, everyone resonates back to this. It's a real big part of what binds us. So that's a lot of things where, speaking to Drew, brings a lot of joy out, is that connection with people. And for those that kind of look at it in the opposite, by way of like just staying away and because of whatever reasons, which is choice is theirs, I find that's where, I don't know, where they wallow a little bit more in sadness because they don't have that support. I think that's a pretty shitty space.
And it is hard to see because I know, like, probably people we know that we care about, and it's sort of hard because how do you push them without scaring them sometimes?
Yeah, of course.
Like we probably
Yeah.
A fine
we spoke
line, isn't
about
it?
last time after
Yeah.
last Men's Day, like there's some people that might have been a bit too
Taken back.
too confronted with
Yeah.
what was going on, and it can scare them. It's like finding that balance, and obviously you care about them, but it's like how do you?
Yeah.
Which can be challenging itself.
It's a fine line, that sort of stuff,
It's
isn't
a
it?
fine
It's a
line,
very
it's very
fine
fine
line.
line.
I remember
my paycheck, to be
doing
honest.
your just a touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hefty paycheck. I've seen it. I've seen it. It's six figures. Might be a red line in front of it, but it's six figures. I remember the first Murph you did. So you started on a Friday
I did.
into the Saturday, and I remember isolating myself from the Friday night, thinking, I'm not sure I'm cut out for this Murph business. But the whole individual, what are people going to think of me? What are they going to?
Yeah.
Like, I'm about 20 kilos lighter than I was, I reckon, that Murph weekend 2 years ago. But you're right. And then to be able to come in and do Drewy's run, obviously, the 6 months later, and seeing how many people came on that journey and doing it together
It's awesome.
meant nearly everyone went above and beyond what they expected to from a distance point of view that weekend. And it's amazing how far you can push yourself
Definitely.
with a community
Yeah.
alongside you, behind you. And as you
Absolutely.
said, Source, we are this weekend going to be running the Melbourne Marathon, and I'm going to get more joy out of seeing you run your first one and finishing. And
Hope
I
so.
think we went through the names the other day, Paul. Like, there might be 12 or 15 people running a full marathon, and 9 of them are doing it for the first time. And that's going to be more exciting to me anyway than me finishing what would be, I think, my third or fourth in the last 12 months.
What did you run in the Gold Coast, man? What's your goal?
3:34 was the Gold Coast.
What's your goal tomorrow?
3:20.
Oh, away.
Away, yeah, we'll be
What's-
racing.
Jeez.
4:44s.
I'll have to be trying to keep up. with
4:44.
Jeez, that's good.
Are you
Good number,
eyeing off
44.
a number?
I'm
Oh,
happy
yeah.
to finish and
Yeah.
survive.
Oh, turn it up to the sub 3
Right,
man.
B-man.
Yeah, sub 3:30 would be.
Ooh.
Oh,
lovely.
yeah, you're right.
Moving.
Mate, you'll be sub 3.
I might just
fucking
tag
bull.
along to Joey and
Yeah, just find the little black man. That's me with the t-shirt and the shorts, all black.
Alright.
And you'll see the blue shoes, and just keep up.
I'll
That's all you'll have to do.
As they
Done.
flash past
Just,
you.
done.
just keep up.
Keeping up is the hard bit.
The last thing I wanted to ask you all, and then we'll wrap this up. How do you define success?
Being happy. Being happy. I reckon being happy.
I like it.
Yeah.
We've really started and ended with some very
It's top and tail.
very,
It's top and
very
tail.
big questions.
I know,
Joseph.
it's good, isn't it?
Success.
Some of my
Yeah.
best, by the
That's
way.
a big
Yeah.
one. I want to re-answer too.
Okay.
Go, no,
Okay.
go.
Thank you.
No, I'm struggling to.
All right,
answer
we'll
that
come
one.
back to Source.
So,
I don't think it's too dissimilar to what Paul said, really. Like, I think, as I just touched on earlier, about not, I suppose, comparing yourself to others and worrying about other people's what other people think, sorry. But, yeah, I think if you're happy at the end of the day, that's the main thing out of life that everyone wants. And obviously you're going to set goals and you're going to have disappointments and setbacks and whether you achieve them or not. But, yeah, I think happiness is the main thing. And, yeah, even if you have failures, you can still take lessons and learnings away from those failures and apply them to the next time and continue to grow.
Hit the ball out of the park.
Nice.
I actually had a chat to a good member of ours, Damo, new fella, great guy. And I feel what's prevalent in today's society is people are stuck on this hamster wheel of when I get to here, I'm going to be good. When I get to there, I'm going to be good. And when I get to here, I'm going to be good. It's okay to have these milestones, but whatever happened to being okay with where you are right now, you know, and sitting in that and being grateful for that. But that's not to say take away aspiration, drive, all that type of stuff. It's very important. But the ability to be content is it doesn't really exist much in today's world. So because of social media and comparing and all this crazy stuff that people are putting out on Instagram with all these physical feats that like the bars raised so high in the running world that someone can't even be happy or content with running a 10K or a 5K. I heard it this morning. Oh, I'm only doing the 10. Well, that's fucking awesome. You're doing 10.
Just 2.5 laps of the river. That's awesome. That's outstanding.
Exactly right. That point goes back to the question that started about being a man. We touched on like the social media aspects. Like it does really alter people's perception
100%
of what it is, what we're meant to be. And like you said, you look at some people's Instagrams, you're like, oh, I should be doing that. Or I should be achieving this, or I should have done this by now.
Or
like,
why can't I do
or
that?
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually said it to Drew. I'm like, mate, well, it's great, all this stuff you're doing, but where does it end? It might not end, but let's be a little bit happier where we are here,
right now.
you know? So, and there's something in that, I think.
There certainly is. I can let you in on this because you were there the day that I had my opportunity early this year to broadcast on Channel 7.
Yes.
Because it was down in Geelong.
Yes.
And it was a great day, great experience and all of that. And it was fantastic that a lot of people obviously got to see it, gave me some feedback. And I came to your place and obviously have an hour to drive home after I see you to get to Essendon. And it was a nice drive home to be content with what just happened rather than going, well, where's the next one?
What's next?
What's next? Like, as I said, 16 years of knowing this is what I want to do for a job and a career. And there are days where you've had it, where you think, is this dark tunnel ever going to show any light? Is anything going to come up? And when you get to September and it's the end of a footy season, you think, well, we'll just start to work towards next year. And that comes up and you think, fuck, it's worth it for days like these.
Absolutely.
And it's worth sitting on a hill in, I don't know, some school that I used to broadcast from, and there's just myself on a little fold-out table talking to no one. It's worth it for those opportunities, but it's good to sit in it to appreciate how far, particularly, obviously, I'm the only one who knows how far my journey's gone and where it's taken me and the work I've put in.
Shout out
And
that
I think
highway.
it's
Good
important.
things happen on that highway.
That's a reflective highway.
It's a reflective piece
It's
of the
probably
highway.
like good example of like you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Like whether, and if you go back to people dealing with their mental health, like if you don't know where to start, just try and start somewhere.
Yeah.
Try and make some little change. Doesn't have to be you wake up and you attack everything in one day.
It's so true,
More
Shaun.
drastic little change.
Yeah.
And go back to about before you said about stacking the bricks.
Stacking.
Just doing it. You have a video party up.
There's a camera right there. Just look down the barrel of the camera.
But it is like, honestly, it's just about stacking the bricks and gaining momentum.
1% every day, and it all adds up in the end.
Absolutely.
So we're just about to finish up. Thank you very much for coming in.
No, thank you for your time.
Do you know that you and Nick Dacos have one thing in common?
Oh, I love this. Here we go. Yeah.
You both wore the number 35.
We did. He probably wore it better.
I think he did.
Yeah.
I think he did. I think he did. And do you know that you were the first player to give away a 50-metre penalty
for the stand
rule?
I did know that.
Were you?
It was a pre-season game against Carlton at Marvel.
There was a whole article about it.
Yeah.
Ill-disciplined. Shaun McKernan.
Sounds about right.
Unbelievable.
The first player
No.
for St
It
Kilda.
was a pre-season game.
For St Kilda.
Against Carlton, I remember it.
Because
The worst thing was too, I actually tried to You know, like they take, you know how they take, you know how they, no, but you know how you take a step back to go to the mark.
Yeah.
I actually stepped back, and as I took the step backwards, that's what I got playing. I didn't step forward. I stepped back.
Step backwards.
And then got pinned.
And then got pinned.
So there's a
Trying
little,
to do the right thing.
there's a little fun fact for you. And I think you got 6 Brownlow votes in total.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Outstanding.
Well,
Sean-
six more than any else. They're doing well.
If Shaun, speaking of being like where you are and appreciate that, if you should be very proud of the career that you had
Thank you.
and what you achieved, because I would hate to know the percentage of people that would want to have played AFL football.
91 times.
What's that?
91 times.
Well, there you
you.
go. For that amount of time, for how long was your career?
12 or 13.
Yeah, you've
Massive.
13 years, and you've come out of that with learnings, and you're an incredible person,
Mm-hmm.
and you've
Now
lived
taking
out
on another
challenged
challenge,
dreams. You
it's
get your
even
next
better.
dream. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you should be very bloody proud of yourself. So
Thank you, sir.
You're a good
Too
man.
kind.
Well done.
It was the under 16 year that started it all
that's
for
very
him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really accelerated.
Right.
Thank you, lads.